and the just government of man. We beseech thee to behold with thy abundant favor us thy servants, whom thou hast been pleased to call to the performance of such important trusts in this land. Let thy blessing descend upon us here in this assembly, and grant that we may, as in thy presence, treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote thy honor and glory, and to advance the good of those whose interests thou hast committed to our charge. All which we ask in thy name, and for the sake of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, members. You may be seated.
Confirmation of minutes. The minutes of proceedings of the 5th meeting of the first session of the 12th Anguilla House of Assembly.
Are there any amendments to the minutes? Amendments? If there are no amendments, can someone move that the minutes be accepted as circulated?
Madam Speaker, I rise to move that the minutes be accepted as.
Is there someone to second, please?
Madam Speaker, I rise to second.
Thank you, members.
Oaths of allegiance to new members? None. Announcements by the direction of the Speaker? Okay. Papers. Anguilla Financial Services Commission Annual Report 2018.
Honorable Premier, Member for Island Harbour.
Good morning, Madam Speaker, members of the House, ladies and gentlemen, the listening audience, those in the gallery. I beg to lay before the House the Anguilla Financial Service Commission Annual Report 2018.
Thank you. Member?
Reports from committees? None. Petitions? None. Government notices? None. Unofficial notices? None. Questions? None. Statement by the Minister of Finance on the allocation of funds for the Anguilla Development Board and the Water Corporation of Anguilla in the Supplementary Appropriation 2020, Number 2 Act 2020.
Madam Speaker, I rise at this. Essentially, the Supplementary Appropriation Bill Number 2, 2020 was passed in this Honorable House on the 25th of September 2020. However, at that time, there was another clarification on the monies allocated to the Anguilla Development Board. So today I'd like to beg that opportunity to clarify. I'd like to make an additional statement to provide clarity to the allocation for some of the funds and to be as transparent as possible with the conduct of government business. This does not increase the expenditure. In the Ministry of Finance, the 500,000 EC dollars originally provided for the Anguilla Development Board as revenue support for 2020, we intend to repurpose those funds as an equity injection to facilitate loans to small and medium businesses that have been impacted by COVID-19. We feel that it is essential that we have been able to continue the unemployment and underemployment benefit, but businesses, especially our small businesses, have not, which have been severely impacted, have not benefited. And so we would like to have the $500,000 that is allocated to the Anguilla Development Board be purposed for loans to small and medium businesses here in Anguilla. Additionally, as COVID-19 revenue losses for some statutory bodies have not been as severe as originally anticipated, some potential savings have been identified. However, the provisions for incremental subventions for these statutory bodies have not been reduced in the Supplementary Appropriation Bill number 2 of 2020, as it is envisioned that these entities may still require further financial assistance in their projected deficits or to reduce expenditure measures. One such entity may be the Water Corporation of Anguilla, which we know has had some deficit, and this is how we would like to appropriate the funds. So the amount doesn't change, it's just the purposing of it. We would like to lay before the House so that this is, and to follow up on our mantra, which is we want to be transparent in all things dealing with government finances and government business. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Just for education of the public, statements made by ministers, there's no provision for written statements within our Legislative Assembly rules. However, when that occurs, we refer to the practice of the UK Commons. And I just wish to point out to members that questions are allowed also under this section. So I will allow questions now if there are any questions from members of the Assembly. Okay, if there are no questions, then I will call upon the clerk to proceed.
Motions? None. Other business, government business. A bill for recording of court proceedings, Act 2020, second reading.
Honorable Attorney General.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to move that a bill standing in my name shortly entitled Recording of Court Proceedings 2020 Act be read a second time.
If you can explain the objects and reasons of this bill, member?
Grateful, Madam Speaker. As the long title indicates, it's an act to provide for the recording and transcribing of court proceedings and for related matters. The object of the bill can be shortly stated as follows. The purpose of the bill is to provide for the recording and transcribing of court proceedings and for related matters. Clause 1 of the bill provides for the interpretation of the bill. Clause 2 of the bill provides for the recording of court proceedings. A recording of court proceedings may be made electronically by using an audio or video recorder or other means directed by the presiding judicial officer. By Clause 3 of the bill, a transcriptionist, in the case of a witness giving answers in court that are not in the English language must only transcribe the answers of the witness in the words of an interpreter. Under Clause 4 of the bill, the accuracy of a transcript of the court proceedings must be certified by the person who prepares the transcript in Form 1, which is a prepared form in which that transcript must be done, and it is contained in the bill, as provided in the schedule to the bill. In the case of evidence given by a witness that is recorded electronically or in accordance with the bill, it is not required that the transcript be read or played back to the witness, and the witness is not required to sign the transcript under Clause 5 of the bill. As would be seen conspicuously, the attempt by this legislative measure is to simplify the process and bring it into the modern mold of electronically recorded and transcribed court proceedings without the old strictures of authentication. By Clause 6, alternatively, the transcript is required to be certified in accordance with Clause 4 of the bill. By Clause 6 of the bill, where a transcript is certified in accordance with the bill, it is treated as an official transcript of the court proceedings. By Clause 7 of the bill, where there is no evidence to the contrary, I repeat, where there is no evidence to the contrary, an official transcript or official record of court proceedings is proof of matters transpiring at that court proceedings. Where there is no evidence to the contrary, an official transcript or official record of court proceedings is proof of matters transpiring at that court proceedings. Under Clause 8 of the bill, a party to court proceedings may make a request for a copy of a transcript of that court proceedings by using Form 2, as distinct from Form 1, which is another prepared form attached and set out in the schedule to the bill. The fees payable for preparing an official transcript are as specified in the rules made under Section 19, subsection 2 of the Supreme Court Act and Section 17 of the Supreme Court Act. Naturally, that means the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court Anguilla Act. Under Clause 9 of the bill, a judicial officer, the Attorney General, and you will see appearing there, although I thought it was corrected, Director of Public Prosecutions, because it's a pilot bill that really was conceived and agreed on at the level of the OACS and the OACS Supreme Court for application to territories and states. It was. Thank you. Right, so the Attorney General or other law officer is exempted from the payment of fees for a transcript required to perform his or her duties as a law officer. That relates to the requests and preparation of transcript of proceedings in relation to court proceedings at a higher level, that is to say, in relation to appeals, where there is the exercise of some right of appeal by law officers of the Crown and other law officers or officers of the court, that is to say attorneys or solicitors, barristers, as the case may be. The Chief Justice is given power to make rules and issue practice directions for the purpose of giving effect to the bill under Clauses 10 and 11 of the bill. By Clause 12 of the bill, the Recording of Court Proceedings Act revised Statutes of Anguilla, Chapter R23, is repealed. So the object is to repeal and replace the existing Recording of Court Proceedings Act in light of these modern reforms of the legislative measure across the territories and states within the jurisdiction of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court. Clause 13 provides for the citation of the bill. The schedule to the bill provides the form for certification of a transcript required under Clause 4 of the bill and for the request of a transcript required under Clause 8 of the bill. These, Madam Speaker and members, are quite succinctly the objects and reasons for this bill.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Is there a seconder?
I rise to second the bill, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I now invite debate on the merits and principles of this bill. Members wishing to make a contribution may now do so. Honorable Leader of Opposition, Member for Sandy Hill.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Speaker, and good morning to the members of the listening public and those of us here this morning. I rise to support, Madam Speaker, the bill for the recording of court proceedings 2020. As a practicing attorney for over 20 years, I see not only the relevance but also the necessity of bringing such a bill to the House and its passage, not just in Anguilla but throughout the territories that form part of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court. And so, Madam Speaker, this bill brings a level of consistency throughout the region in terms of how recordings of proceedings take place and how persons are able to obtain copies of transcripts, etc., as set out in the bill. And so, Madam Speaker, I give my full support to the Court Proceedings Act. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member for Sandy Hill. Are there any other contributions? If there are no other contributions, I'll ask the mover to respond, please.
Grateful, Madam Speaker. I do believe there's very little that I can usefully add to what really is not a controversial legislative measure. As the Honourable Leader of Opposition has indicated from her perspective as a practitioner, the measures that are introduced by this bill are not only useful but are timely. And so I commend it to the whole House. Many thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Member. It has been moved and seconded that a bill shortly entitled Recording of Court Proceedings Act 2020 be now read a second time. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. I call upon the clerk to read the bill a second time.
A bill for an act to provide for the recording and transcribing of court proceedings and for related matters.
Under Rule 54 of the Legislative Assembly Rules of Procedure, the bill now stands referred to a committee of the whole Assembly to be considered, clause by clause. Assembly and committee.
Clauses 1 through 13.
I put the question that clauses 1 through 13 do stand part of the bill. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it.
The schedule.
I put the question that the schedule do stand part of the bill. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it.
There are two schedules.
Schedule 1 and 2.
No, there's one schedule with two forms. Yeah?
It does, it is.
Oh. There's only one schedule. Oh, you want to examine each form? No? That's good? Okay. Okay. The title?
I put the question that the title do stand part of the bill. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it.
The enacting clause?
I put the question that the enacting clause do stand part of the bill. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. The Assembly will now resume its sitting.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to report that the bill entitled Recording of Court Proceedings 2020 has passed through committee without amendment and is ready for its third reading.
A bill for Recording of Court Proceedings Act 2020, third reading.
Honorable Attorney General.
I beg your pardon, Madam Speaker.
Can you move for the bill's passage?
Sorry?
Can you move for the bill to
Oh, the
be
third
passed?
reading.
Yes.
Obliged, Madam Speaker. I move that the bill entitled Recording of Court Proceedings Act 2020 be read a third time and passed. Obliged.
Madam Speaker, I rise to second.
It has been moved and seconded that a bill entitled Recording of Court Proceedings Act 2020 be now read a third time and passed. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. I call upon the clerk to read the bill a third time.
An act to provide for the recording and transcribing of court proceedings and for related matters.
Bill read a third time and passed.
A bill for Courts of Justice Fees Act 2020, second reading.
It appears I'm much exercised this morning. Madam Speaker, I beg to move that a bill standing in my name shortly entitled the Courts of Justice Fees Act be read a second time. Fortunately, with this measure, this too is not controversial in any respect, in that its purpose can be very readily gleaned from its long title, an act to support the administration of fees payable under the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court Court Procedure Rules 2017. The object and reasons for the bill can be briefly indicated in what follows. The purpose of this bill is to repeal and replace. Purpose of this bill is to repeal and replace the Courts of Justice Fees Act, Revised Statutes of Anguilla, Chapter C-135, due to the coming into force of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court Court Proceedings Fees Anguilla Rules 2017, which have already been promulgated by the Honorable Chief Justice. Those are the objection reasons.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Is there someone to second?
Madam Speaker, I rise to second.
Thank you, Member. I now invite debate on the merits and principles of this bill. Floor is now open for contributions. Honorable Leader of Opposition, Member for Sandy Hill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I do support the bill. The only question that I have that I would be grateful if the Honorable Attorney General could answer is that paragraph 10, it refers to a previous Courts of Justice Fees Act and states that it is repealed. And I am curious as to whether the difference would be as a result of paragraph 2, which allows now for credit card, debit card, which I would imagine would not have been the case in the previous bill. But not having had sight of the previous Courts of Justice Fees Act, I'm simply curious as to what is it, the difference between what was there and what is now. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Are there any other contributions? If there are no other contributions, I invite the mover to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Again, there is very little that one can say to advance the clarity of what is a very briefly stated and very self-explanatory legislative measure. In relation to the Honorable Leader of Opposition's query, indeed, there is a relationship with the Section 2 that appears in this measure, and its stated object of repeal of the existing Court of Justice Fees Act. That is to say, in summary, this is a measure that intends to march with the times as it relates to the simplification of the payment of court fees and the instrumentalities by which the payments can be made easy, that is to say by credit card, etc. At the moment, there is no legislative context for those modern means of payment and money conveyance in relation to court fees. So, Madam Speaker, having said that, I wish to commend this bill for the consideration of the entire House.
Thank you, honorable members. It has been moved and seconded that a bill entitled Courts of Justice Fees Act 2020 be now read a second time. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. I call upon the clerk to read the bill a second time.
An act to support the administration of fees payable under the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court Court Proceedings Fees Anguilla Rules 2017.
Under Rule 54 of the Legislative Assembly Rules of Procedure, the bill now stands referred to a committee of the whole Assembly to be considered clause by clause. Assembly and committee.
Clauses 1 through 12.
Honorable Premier, Leader of Government Business and Member for Island Harbor.
Madam Speaker, I'm not a lawyer and don't pretend to be one, but if we are changing the ways payments can be made to modernize it, the concern here is in Clause 2, number 2, talks about payment made in postage stamps, and you know, it would seem that maybe this is a carryover from ancient times, but I'd like some explanation on that if the court still accepts postage stamps as a means of payment. Secondly, in Clause 7, where it talks about penalty, maybe the sentence is appropriate of 2 years if there's any fraud on documents, but it would seem that a fine in lieu of imprisonment may be something considered. I do see that when we look in Clause 11 that this act should come into force at March 1st of 2019, and so maybe this is just so that we can catch up with what is currently the current law. But I think that these are some concerns I would have where the penalty seems very harsh of 2 years imprisonment upon conviction if a stamp is forged, maybe consideration of a fine in lieu of, or a fine along with. And those are the concerns I would have with this bill as it is presented. Thank you.
Thank you, member. Concerns have been raised. We are in the committee stage. Are there any other concerns or amendments or anything to this bill?
Well, short of the, Madam Chairperson, short of the introduction of an amendment, what I can say is in relation to the issue of stamps, that is the time-honored means by which the payment of court fees are indicated on official court documents, that you pay the requisite filing fees to the tune of a certain amount, which is represented by stamps which are affixed to the document in attestation of that payment of the court fees. The introduction of the credit card and debit card method is in line with what is already on the march, which is that there are now means of electronic filing of court documents where the payment or the indication of payment of the requisite court fees by stamps would not really be consistent or applicable. It allows also for where there is the manual filing, you can also pay by the modern means of credit and debit. Manual filings would be not the electronic filings, but would be the ones where you go to the registry and the stamps would indicate the fee payments. That is really what is achieved by that clause of the bill, that is to say 2. In relation to penalties, I cannot reasonably give any input as to the animating background as to why it is 2 years as opposed to 1, as opposed to 6 months. And I say this because of the very reason that of how these initiatives of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court are conceived. They usually, well, it is the normal course that they are the product of consultation between judicial officers, subcommittees, attorneys general, and they are canvassed at the level for final authorization, particularly at the OECS heads of government. And when it is so authorized, then we come by jurisdiction to have them implemented, because it is seen as a part of the ongoing reform of the court, as opposed to other domestic legislation that will have further wide-ranging impact. So the long and short is as to why it is 2 years and whether I agree or disagree that it is harsh or too little, too long. I can't explain that other than to say the origins of these measures were pilot projects that have been ongoing for some time and agreed by each of the jurisdictions or the territories and states of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court jurisdiction. Now that is not to say, following on from the Honorable Premier's concern, that is not to say that although the intention is that all the legislative measures in each territory and state should be harmonized, meaning that they should be the same. They should have the same penalties, they should have the same fees, etc. That is not to say that adjustments cannot be made to domestic legislation to be sensitive to peculiar circumstances of the territory. Certainly, if that is the case, some engagement should be made or will have to be made if we're going in that direction with the Supreme Court headquarters on that regard. For the simple reason that an adjustment to this legislative measure will be an anomaly in the region because it will be a piece of legislation that does not look like the others and that there are changes made here that do not correspond to its kindred statutes in the other territories and states.
Madam Chairperson, I'd like to thank the Honorable Attorney General for the explanation. You know, sometimes I'm trying to follow the leader or just conform, and sometimes doesn't apply in the local jurisdiction as it may in the region. And so that was just a concern I had, that one size doesn't always fit all.
That's
and
true.
so that's why I raised the issue. Certainly, the explanation is accepted, and we can move on. I thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. We are considering clauses 1 to 12. Any questions, any clarification that needs to be sought? Now would be a good time. Okay. I put the question that clauses 1 to 12 do stand part of the bill. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it.
The title?
I put the question that the title do stand part of the bill. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it.
The enacting clause?
I put the question that the enacting clause do stand part of the bill. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. The Assembly will now resume its sitting. Can the mover report?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to report that the bill entitled Court of Justice Fees Act 2020 has passed through committee without amendment and is ready for its third reading.
A bill for Courts of Justice Fees Act 2020, third reading.
Madam Speaker, I move that a bill entitled Court of Justice Fees Act 2020 be read a third time and passed.
Is there someone to second? It has been moved and seconded that a bill shortly entitled Courts of Justice Fees Act 2020 be now read a third time and passed. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. I call upon the clerk to read the bill a third time.
An act to support the administration of fees payable under the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court Court Proceedings Fees and Anguilla Rules 2017.
Bill read a third time and passed.
A bill for Magistrates Code of Procedures Amendment Act 2020, second reading.
Honorable Attorney General.
Many thanks, Madam Speaker. I beg to move that a bill shortly entitled Magistrates Code of Procedure Amendment Act be read a second time. Madam Speaker, the object and reasons, indeed the purpose of the bill may be shortly stated. The object and reason of this bill is to amend the Magistrates Code of Procedure Act to facilitate the taking of evidence of a witness other than the accused or defendant by the magistrate by video link. Object and reason of this bill is to amend the Magistrates Code of Procedure Act to facilitate the taking of evidence of a witness other than the accused or defendant by the magistrate by video link. The bill allows the magistrate to deem the evidence a deposition once the evidence is read over to the witness and the witness indicates that the evidence is correct and the magistrate signs. The animating context of this legislative measure, Madam Speaker, honorable members, is not far to seek. It is obviously the new and changed situation that we all find ourselves in which we must operate, that is to say, in the context of the global pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic, which has affected all aspects of social function. The court is no different. In fact, the court and its processes have been directly impacted. Trials, particularly at the preliminary inquiry stage, which is a critical stage of filtration and finding of sufficiency in criminal cases, occurs at the magistrate's court, which court feels the gamut of cases, particularly, gamut of criminal cases in the jurisdiction. This measure will allow for the efficiency of the court process relative to PIs and related interlocutory hearings to proceed smoothly and do not clog the system in consequence of the pandemic and the inability of vital witnesses to attend in the jurisdiction, that is to say, to come into Anguilla from abroad to give evidence in person. It also makes a very important change in the law, which is a direct and perhaps a positive consequence of the COVID-19 pandemic. In addition to introducing the mode of giving evidence in the magistrate's court in a preliminary inquiry by video link electronic connection, it also provides in law that the deposition taken by the magistrate of a witness so examined by this medium is deemed to be a proper deposition. The law as exists now, in these moments before I hope the law is changed by this measure, is that a deposition cannot validly sustain or buttress committal, or if deposition, in short, is not valid unless it is read over and signed also by the person who gave the evidence in person. So the witness must sign. Through this change, there is no need for that. The authentication is done by the trusted judicial officer, which is the magistrate, who would have taken down the evidence, would have seen the witness being examined, and can attest to the correctness of what is uttered by this means. It must be recalled that nothing changes in the law, in substance, about giving evidence. It is just a medium by which you give the evidence. So, for example, it is almost akin to say that you can give evidence by telephone. You are still giving evidence. What you say is taken down. What you say is what binds you. It is the means by which you are communicating the evidence. And so, as can be seen in this new change circumstance, this is to keep the processes of the court in the territory up to speed, not only with the technology, but also the changed times that we find ourselves in, so that justice can continue to function and be administered properly. So, Madam Speaker, having said these words and indicating the very short object and purpose, reason for the bill, I commend the bill to the entire House.
Is there someone to second?
I rise to second the bill, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, honorable members. I now invite debate on the merits and principles of this bill. The floor is now open for contribution. Honorable member for Valley South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this bill would be bringing the courts of today into the courts of tomorrow. As we look at the impacts of COVID-19 on our various jurisdictions, we notice that we have to rely on technology across the board, whether it's in our schools and now in our courts. Every student of the law would know the overarching or the overriding objective in the civil procedure rules, which is to enable the court to deal with cases justly. And in this changed environment, part of dealing with cases justly where persons are closed into borders or not allowed to leave certain borders is being able to have access to them through an alternative means. And in this particular circumstance, that's by Live Link. We've seen a number of the pieces of legislation before the House today dealing with technology in the court system. This is updating our payment measures, introducing technology into the courts by giving evidence by Live Link, and the admission of this evidence into the court system. And Madam Speaker, what this has made very clear is that we want to have the outcome of a better and more efficient court service. We want to be able to use things once considered as special measures for the betterment of the court system. And when I refer to the overriding objective in the CPR, this includes a number of other factors, which includes putting the parties on the same footing, saving expense, dealing with cases in a manner that's proportionate to the amount of money, the importance of the case, the complexity, and the financial positions of the parties, dealing with cases expeditiously, and allotting an appropriate amount of the court's time to the matter, And while we talk about dealing with cases expeditiously, Madam Speaker, it is clear that if we don't have access to certain individuals because of their location, that having them give evidence by live link is an appropriate measure in order for the court to continue its function in delivering justice. And therefore, Madam Speaker, while we prioritize and introduce innovative ways of dealing with technology in the law, I stand in support of this bill to allow those other than the accused to give evidence by live link. I'm sure there are a number of other bills that may be put forward in relation to how evidence is given in court in the future as a result of our run-in with this pandemic, and how justice is delivered in those circumstances. So, Madam Speaker, those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Are there any other contributions? Honourable Leader of Opposition, Member for Sandy Hill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, once again, I rise to support this bill. The Magistrates Procedure Amendment Act 2000, which is shortly to come into force. Now, the civil procedure rules, as was mentioned by the member for Valley South, in fact, does not apply to the Magistrates Court. But the principles, as she enunciated, are applicable generally in terms of the application of the law to circumstances throughout the legal arena. Now, in terms of the Magistrates Code in particular, and the amendment that is being sought with respect to evidence, a witness being able to give evidence by video link. In fact, sitting as a minister of government, I saw the very real need where there were witnesses that were relocated outside of the jurisdiction. And because of health and safety concerns, there was a very real concern with respect to those persons coming back into the jurisdiction in order to give evidence. And as a result of that, special dispensations had to be made for those persons. And so the coming into force of this portion of the Magistrates Code of Procedure, which allows for evidence to be taken by video link, not just in this Magistrates Code, but also in the Evidence Act to come, is a step forward in terms of addressing not only the impact of COVID-19 and the circumstances where persons are unable to return to Angola or come to Angola for one reason or the other, but also to address the concerns that have emanated by witnesses residing overseas that may have a real concern for returning to Angola to be able to give evidence. And this allows that evidence to be given wherever they are located. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Member for Road South.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I rise to give full support of this amendment. And one of the things that we must be cognizant of is the fears and views of the general public as it relates to bills that comes to this honorable house. Just this morning on coming to this house, I noticed that there was a large crowd gathered outside and barriers around the parliament. And it underscores the need for us to modernize and to separate the parliament from the court. I know this is good democratic principles across the world, and most Tuesdays we meet here at 8:30 to discuss parliamentary procedure with friends and colleagues from around the world, in particular from the United Kingdom, and from a committee that comprises of members from both sides of the political divide. And invariably, we all agree on those issues that arise from those deliberations. So hopefully in the very near future, Madam Speaker, we will move towards a more democratic parliament where the separation of the court and parliament is done, because I'm not sure if the barriers are around the court or around the parliament, but I know that there are barriers right now around this building. But while I say that, Madam Speaker, one of the major fears of the general public on hearing of this bill coming to the House was that this amendment was intended to give certain persons who have engaged in acts in Anguilla the ability to avoid coming back to the jurisdiction to face trial. But I want to allay those fears by letting the public know who have raised those concerns that this bill takes into consideration only those who are witnesses and not those who are accused. So those persons who may have been accused for crimes within this jurisdiction and are right now outside of this jurisdiction for one reason or the next is not here to face trial, it does not apply to them. It only applies to witnesses. But it also underscores the need for us to evolve, as the Honorable Member for Valley South spoke about, the need for us to evolve given this COVID-19 pandemic and the use of the digital technology that is before us, that we can have much of our meetings, our discussions, and even through the courts, through Zoom and other means of communication. And it also underscores the need for swift justice, Madam Speaker. And my visit outside to try to get an understanding as to why so many people were outside, I realized that there was a number of proceedings before the court. And on speaking to the persons out there, I realized that a lot of these are long-standing issues. And, you know, justice delayed is justice denied. And we must find a way to move a lot of these matters much more quickly through our courts. So, as I said, I rise to give full support to this amendment and also to allay the fears of the general public as it relates to what this bill is about. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, honorable members. Are there any other contributions? If there are no other contributions, can I invite the mover to, to reply? Can I invite the mover to reply?
Many thanks, Madam Speaker. I am grateful, as usual, for the interventions, the responses, and the contributions of colleagues. Permit me to say, in closing, I'm not one to press the point to extinction, so I wouldn't repeat the objects of the bill. But I would make good the occasion to say a few things in addition to, and which are related to, the enacting objectives which underpin this measure. I'm also grateful for the particular contributions of the Honourable Member for Valley South and the Leader of Opposition in relation to the justice ideals which certainly this measure seeks to serve. But can we recall, just for a moment, that this measure in the amendment to the Magistrates' Code of Procedure Act is narrowly limited to the conduct and course of preliminary inquiries, which are the first stage criminal proceedings, where the charges or the offense in relation to which there exists a charge are rather serious offenses. It intends to permit and to authenticate the evidence given by a witness who is not in Anguilla, but outside of Anguilla. That is, remember, a witness not in Anguilla, but outside of Anguilla, to give evidence which can be used to determine whether there's sufficient evidence to send the case up for a trial before a jury. we were keen to keep this measure in this narrow confine, because if it were to be extendable to the conduct of a criminal trial, then the argument can legitimately come forward that not only attorneys would be able to conduct a criminal trial by live link, but so would an absconding accused. So we were very keen not to go in that direction at all. This measure reinforces not just the ideals that all three members spoke about in relation to justice and good administration of justice, but it guards against abuse of the court's process for very unsavory tactical reasons that offenders and others may have. So having said that, Madam Speaker, again I commend this measure for the consideration of the entire House.
Thank you, Honorable Member, and thank you, members, for your contributions. It has been moved and seconded that a bill shortly entitled Magistrates Code of Procedure Amendment Act 2020 be now read a second time. Those in favor, say aye. Those against, say no. The ayes have it. I call upon the clerk to read the bill a second time.
An act to amend the Magistrates Code of Procedure Act, Revised Statutes of Anguilla, Chapter M5.
Under Rule 54 of the Legislative Assembly Rules of Procedure, the bill now stands referred to a committee of the whole Assembly to be considered clause by clause. Assembly in committee.
Clause 1.
I put the question that Clause 1 do stand part of the bill. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Call the clause. You can call the clause.
Are these the same? Is it the same as the one on street paper?
This is the amendments that carry it forward.
So we are back, so this is added to that.
This is added to this. So this is, and that's inserted right after clause.
Very good. Okay. Madam Chairperson, I believe intended amendments at this committee stage have been circulated for amendment following Clause 1. There should be certain insertions. It's on the, Mr. Clerk, it's on the,
I believe members have copies. Yes?
no, go ahead. Yeah. Yes, in relation to clause, you want me to traverse them? Madam Speaker, Madam Chair, right. In relation to clause 1, the amendments suggested to be inserted directly following clause 1 are those indicated in the suggested amendments circulated to members. Insertion of new sections 42A and 42B. Should I read them out? The Principal Act is amended by inserting the following sections directly after section 42. Marginal note, counsel appearing via video link, or via live links in a preliminary inquiry. 42A. 1. Counsel acting for the accused may apply to the magistrate to conduct a preliminary inquiry through a live link. 2. Where an application referred to in subsection 1 is made, the magistrate may refuse or allow the application. 3. Where the magistrate allows the application under subsection 2, the magistrate shall give a direction for counsel to conduct the preliminary inquiry through a live link. 4. No direction shall be given under this section unless A. The magistrate is satisfied that it is in the interest of the efficient or effective administration of justice for the counsel concerned to conduct a preliminary inquiry through a live link. B. It has been notified by the governor and council that suitable facilities for a live link are available. C. Well, it should be and C. Should be and C. And should follow the semicolon in paragraph B. And, the word and. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That was my error. That was my error. Or should follow. The word or, sorry. Should follow the semicolon. Yes. 5. No direction given under this section before the withdrawal of such notification shall be affected by such withdrawal. 6. When deciding whether to give a direction under this section, the magistrate must consider all the circumstances of the case, including the following. A. The availability of the counsel seeking to conduct the preliminary inquiry by a live link. B. The views of the prosecution. C. The suitability of the facilities at the place where the counsel would conduct a preliminary inquiry through a live link. D. Whether a direction might tend to inhibit counsel from effectively testing the witness's evidence. 7. The magistrate must state in court the reasons for refusing an application for a direction under this section and must cause such reasons to be recorded. 8. Where the magistrate refuses an application for direction under this section, the applicant may only make another application where there has been a material change in circumstances. Marginal note, magistrates court permitted to sit at other locations for live links. 42B. 1. This section applies where a magistrate's court is minded to give a direction under section 42A, which was just detailed. And B. Suitable facilities for live link are not available at the magistrate's court. 2. The court may sit for the purposes of the whole or any part of the proceedings at any place at which suitable facilities for live link are available and which has been appointed for the purposes of this section by the Governor in Council under Section 9. That, of course, would be Section 9 of the Principal Act. 2. Intended amendment by this suggested amendment to the bill. Number 2 is by substituting A, the designation clause 2 with clause 3 instead, and B, the designation of clause 3 accordingly with clause 4 in its stead. Those are the suggested amendments, Madam Chair. Sorry? We are just done numbering accordingly. Yeah. Numbering adjusted accordingly.
Okay.
Who's this one? Oh, okay.
So the amendments are for consideration, members. If you need clarification, now is the time to ask, please.
Perhaps, Madam Chair, if I may be permitted, if it will be in further aid of members' digestion of the suggested amendments in relation to the new clauses which would amend Section 42, that is 42A and 42B. Members would appreciate, by looking at these measures this morning, that in relation to these last two bills, that is to say this one and the one that followed before, they are companion measures in that they seek to adapt the court's process to the continuing march of using the technological instrumentalities of live link, video link, and so on, to bring the court up to date with that. And they are in direct response to the changed environment of the COVID-19 and its effects on the court process and functions. But it is also to allow, in fair balance, counsel, defense counsel, who may be external defense counsel for someone who's accused or who's a defendant in a preliminary inquiry in Angola, for external counsel to effectively represent them and appear by video link. And it's limited to preliminary inquiries, so that it is limited to only those processes in the magistrate's court. Now, there is a very important reason for that. The vagaries and the dynamics of a full trial before a jury in the assizes is a different kettle of fish, and that the jury must have the opportunity to actually see a witness in person, see their interactions, the questions, and so on, in order to gauge the truth. Although you're beaming somebody live by the video link, the whole ambience, the whole presence of the person is not the same. It's a substitute, but it's not the same. It is rather important for testing evidence at the critical level of a jury trial that witnesses be here in person, and also that counsel be present in the court in person. So these measures, you would notice, are limited to the proceedings at the magistrate's court level. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Questions, anyone, for clarification? Okay. Then I put the question. that the new clause, the amendments that have been circulated, do stand part of the bill. Those in favor, say aye. Those against, say no. The ayes have it.
Clause 3 to 4. So clauses 3 to 4.
Clauses 3 to 4 for consideration. I put the question that clauses 3 to 4 do stand part of the bill. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. I put the question that the title do stand part of the bill. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it.
The enacting clause.
I put the question that the enacting clause do stand part of the bill. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. The Assembly will now resume its sitting. And the mover report.
Honorable Madam Speaker, I beg to report that the bill entitled Magistrates Code of Procedure Amendment Act 2020 has passed through committee with amendments and is now ready for its third reading.
Magistrates Code of Procedure Amendment Act 2020, third reading.
Madam Speaker, I move that the bill entitled Magistrates Code of Procedure Amendment Act 2020 be read a third time and passed.
Is there a seconder?
I rise to second it, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, members. It has been moved and seconded that a bill shortly entitled Magistrates Code of Procedure Amendments Act 2020 be now read a third time and passed. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. I call upon the clerk to read the bill a third time.
An act to amend the Magistrates Code of Procedure Act, Revised Statutes of Anguilla, Chapter M5.
Bill read a third time and passed.
A Bill for Evidence Amendment Act 2020, second reading.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in relation to this measure, a bill for an Evidence Amendment Act 2020, I wish to move that this bill be withdrawn. And as I comprehend it in the rules, as is common with most houses of parliament with similar parliamentary rules, I was not required to give notice of it, but just that it be seconded. I am therefore moving that this bill be withdrawn, and if I may be permitted, I will shortly state the reason.
Certainly.
Obliged, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, having regard to the essential measures that have been passed by this Honourable House just now in relation to the Magistrates Code of Procedure Act, particularly the amendments recently done moments ago in that measure, that is the Magistrates Code of Procedure Amendment Act, the measures sought to be introduced in the Evidence Amendment Bill, in my respectful opinion, have become unnecessary. Also, upon my own reflection and that of a very diligent team in examining the measures of this Evidence Amendment Bill, in conjunction with those that we have been able to achieve, hopefully with sufficient clarity, in the ones that we have just effected by its passage. We intended also to guard against this measure thought of in this one, that is the Evidence Amendment Act, being used to derail actual criminal trials in the assizes. And we will not permit that to be done at all. And so we thought that it is best to withdraw this bill. Sufficient measures have already been made in the previous bills we have just addressed. And also, as it stands now by an existing amendment to the Evidence Act, evidence can be given by live link by a witness, particularly those expert witnesses, other than the accused, at the High Court level in those proceedings. And so there is no need for us to chart a course into these waters, as we have tried to do in this measure. So the long and short is that the measures we have just addressed are sufficient to address the mischief, so to speak, that we detected in these new challenging times of the pandemic. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Is there a seconder?
I raise the second, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, honorable members. So it has been moved and seconded that a bill entitled Evidence Amendment Act 2020 be withdrawn from the agenda. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. Bill withdrawn.
Adjournment.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move that this Honorable House stands adjourned until October 27, 2020.
Someone to second?
Madam Speaker, I do rise to second, but I know it is customary on the adjournment I may utter a few words. Can I just kindly say that I appreciate the support in these measures given by our friends opposite in the opposition benches and my colleagues on the government side. I wish to state on record, in a very non-partisan way, that I am pleased for the support this morning, and also that from the coming into office of this particular administration, these measures, particularly the court recording of court proceedings Act, Court Fees Act, and there's some other measures which will come, have been, from inception, been supported. And so I'm very grateful to all members for supporting these very useful, timely, and very necessary measures. I second, Madam Speaker.
It has been moved and seconded that this Honorable House stands adjourned until October 27th. Just before I ask members to vote, I acknowledge the member for West End.
West End. Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the last time you were in this Honorable House, we spent quite a bit of time paying tribute to a number of people who have passed, who are very dear to us. And I know that the member for Road North has lost his mom as well. So again, publicly, I would like to offer my condolences to my colleague across the way.
But for bringing that to our attention, that was an oversight on our part, and I do make apologies and do offer condolences, and now I would invite members of the Assembly to offer tributes in that regard. Member for Road South.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I must thank the honorable member for West End for a reason that the member for Road North is a dear friend of mine. We go way back through high school. He was always a good kid, I was a bad kid. And then we spent a lot of time in high school together. Again, he was a good kid, and I was a bad kid. We worked at Barclays Bank PLC together, and he was a good man, and I was a bad man. So I just want to put that out there because it's almost a statement of fact. You know, it may be a little bit stretching, as my honorable member for Valley South would typically say. But it's really has a lot of fact to it. And every day we would see, meet, talk with the member for Road North's mother, because she was a long-standing employee of L&J's Building Supplies in the Valley. And that business, owned by Mr. Rugby Lake, Evans Rugby Lake, was right adjacent to Barclays Bank PLC, in which we worked. And we were a family. We were really a family, in that George Lake would take us to lunch at lunchtimes along with his son, Goshwin. And three of us would be really family, and his mom, Vida, would really be a wise counsel, and she always had a good spirit, always in a good mood, always upbeat. And even during the time when I was clarion and begging and prodding the member for Road North to get involved in the politics, because and it wasn't from a political perspective, because he's someone who has always had Anguilla's interests at heart from the time we were kids, and his family has always been keen about the development of young people and the development of Anguilla. And I would message him all the time and call him all the time. And he knows this. This is a statement of fact. And he was a reluctant candidate, Madam Speaker. And I kept on prodding, and I would go to his mom, you know, because I know his mom was held in high esteem. And I was speaking to her to try to convince him. And she was like, you know, my son, yes, he has the ability, but he's doing so much with the young people that I don't know if he can serve the young people as a member of parliament. And I said he would be able to serve the young people more as a member of parliament. And then she came on board, and during the election campaign, I would see her all the time, Madam Speaker. I would always see her. She was always in a great mood, always in good spirits. And when I heard the news very early that morning, Madam Speaker, I couldn't believe it, because the last time I saw her and spoke to her, she was in good mood, good spirits, always, never complained, Madam Speaker. I've never seen her complain. And I called a member for Road North, and immediately on him answering the phone, I realized my greatest fear was true. Because while he was calm, cool, and collective, as he always is, Madam Speaker, I could hear the crying in the background. And I really didn't know what to say. I was lost for words, because whenever someone passes, you know, you really don't know what to say. And we've all had the experience, had the experience of someone close to us passing. I remember that Friday afternoon when I heard the member for Valley North's brother, when he passed. And I was close to my other brother, Greg, at the time. And Greg and the member for Valley North's brother were very close. And the feeling and that the expressions that my brother expressed at the time really touched me, you know, and I know every one of us have had someone who were lost suddenly. And I too, on December 17 of 2014, Madam Speaker, I was just about to stand here to make a presentation in Parliament. And the member for Valley North and the former member for Island Harbor, we were together that day, Madam Speaker. We had lunch together, and we were driving together coming from from South Hill. And the ambulance was going west, Madam Speaker. And I was sitting in the back seat, and I said, gentlemen, that person is in trouble because the speed the ambulance was going down in. Lo and behold, the ambulance was going to pick up my deceased brother. And so I think that I can empathize and sympathize because we all have that experience of having a close loved one. Even the member for Island Harbor, the Honorable Premier, he was just a schoolboy when his father suddenly passed. So we've all had that experience, and I know the member for Road North, even though he's here with us in Parliament and he's still serving the people of Anguilla through this loss, I know it must be really saddening for him, given the fact that he lost his mom and he lost her so suddenly. But one of the things that I have always asked my children to do for me, and every time I speak to them, I always say to my 3 children, all I want you to do for me is to make Daddy proud. That's all. And I know that Vida is watching right now, and knowing that her son, Merrick Richardson, the Honorable Merrick Richardson, he's an honorable gentleman, in and out of this house, have made her proud even before he was elevated to the highest office of the land. So, to my colleague and friend, I want to wish you and your family my deepest condolences. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member for Road South. Are there any other contributions? Honorable Member for Valley North.
Madam Speaker, I too rise to echo similar sentiments in terms of sympathy and condolences to the honorable member. I know his mom very well from the time I was a child. And to say to him and his family that the good Lord giveth, the good Lord taketh. Give thanks and praises to him, even in times such as these, and be thankful for the time that you would have spent with her. There are instances where a number of individuals who would not have spent that time with any one of their parents, so to speak. And as the honorable member for Road South mentioned, we've all experienced this type of loss. But at the end of the day, we must look back and we must celebrate her life and what she's done, not only for her immediate family, her children and extended family, but also for Anguilla in general. They grew up in a time in Anguilla when there were very few opportunities and our choices. And they have made sacrifices so that we could be here today in this honorable house and making our contribution to our society as well. The loss of a loved one is something that you never get over it, but as time goes along, you learn to live with it and accept it. And as I mentioned earlier, you have to continue in faith and place that faith in our Redeemer. Again, condolences to you and your family from me and my family.
Thank you, Honorable Member. For Valley North, Honorable Single Island Wide Electoral District, Mr. Kenneth Hodge.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would just like to convey to my friend, my next door neighbor, and next door neighbor in terms of being in the office, he's just up from me, that, we would like to express our sympathies to him. Some months ago, I would have attended a wake in North Hill, and I commented then, and I continue to comment about the close-knit nature of that community and the way that they rally around each other in times such as these. And I was quite struck again when we visited Merrick on the afternoon, the fact that so many persons in the village had rallied around the family. And in times like these, that level of support is what takes us through these very trying times. So, Merrick, my brother, I know you're smiling outwardly, but inwardly you are grieving. But we are here with you in this time, and we'll be with you as we move forward. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I acknowledge the Honorable Single Island Wide Electoral District Member, Mr. Jose Cantapor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'll be brief, as I've already had the opportunity to speak to Mr. Richardson directly in person, but I just wanted to stand to publicly, on behalf of myself and my family, offer condolences to you and yours. It's ironic because I know you because I'm a Barclays baby. You worked along with my mother, a person who I myself can't imagine losing. So I can't begin to imagine the pain that you're going through right now. But you have my full support, and I'll keep you in my prayers. May God be with you and your family.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I acknowledge the Honorable Member for Valley South.
Madam Speaker, thank you. I'd like to address my colleague. The Merrick, Honorable Member for Road North, I know that you are as calm and as cool as a cucumber. You have a joke for every moment. And talking about something like this is always very fraught with emotion. And I will say for myself that I'm not the best when it comes to offering the right words when it comes to dealing with pain and loss. And so I extend to you, on behalf of myself, my family, our team, condolences publicly. We've spoken about it. We've been there with you. I know how hard it is, and I again, to echo what the Single Island Wide Electoral District member for the opposition said, it's very difficult to imagine losing your parent, especially someone who had such a warm smile. Anybody who stepped into LNJ would know from coming into contact with Vida that she was really a sweetheart. And if anything that gives you solace, which I imagine would be very difficult right now to find, I think we can take solace in the fact that she has given birth to an incredible man who we are proud to call teammate. Sorry.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On this occasion, I rise in the capacity of Karen Bradley, who's been a very close personal friend of Mr. Chutson for quite some time, well over 20 years. And in that time, I would have eaten enough of Vida's food, being the brunt of her admonishment for different things over the years, advice, counsel, commendation, and praise when it was well deserved. So I only rise to say what I've said to him privately, that on behalf of my family, and I offer my deepest condolences to you and your family, and may she rest in peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Governor, Deputy Speaker. Honorable Leader of Opposition, Member for Sandy Hill.
Thank you. I had the opportunity to speak separately with the member for Road North and give him my condolences, but I wanted to publicly stand and do so today as well on behalf of myself, my family, and the community of District Number 2. It is never easy to lose a parent, whether it's a mother or father, but more so the loss of a mother who's considered to be the bedrock of the home. And so I know the difficulties, I know the heartache that the member for Road North may be experiencing, but I want to say to him that the pain never goes away, it just lessens over time. And so on behalf of myself and my family, I give you my condolences.
Thank you, Honorable Leader of Opposition, Member for Sandy Hill. Honorable Premier, Member for Island Harbor.
Madam Speaker, I too rise and give, heartfelt sympathy and condolences to, my colleague and, who has become my friend. And, I remember the member from Road South saying that, he talked a lot to him and to his now wonderful mother who is deceased about him joining us on this journey. And I remember, having to go and find him. And I had to, he gave me directions when I called him on the phone of how, but I didn't understand, that you had to go near where the pharmacy is, and then you have to turn down a road, and then you're going into the bushes. Then you see a building, then you got to find another building, go up the stairs, and then he was tucked in the corner. But he's a hard-working man, and I got there, and of course, he told me I could come and see him, but he was getting his work done still, and this was late in the evening, and he is one of the hardest working men I know. And I just want to say that he's made me a better person, just knowing the work ethic he has. We went to see him the afternoon of his mother's passing, and he said, Doc, I'm sorry that I couldn't come into work today, and I'll be there bright and early tomorrow. And I was like, take as much time as you need. This is not one of those times when we expect you to show up. I know I'm a tough taskmaster and a slave driver, but I don't want that reputation to get out there, but he came to work, and he's been performing because he feels that, once he made sure his family was okay, he came to take care of his Anguilla family. And that's what I appreciate about my colleague and my friend, the Honorable Merrick Richardson, member for Road North. And so I want not only to him, but also to his family and to his brothers and his sister in England and to the rest of the family and the North Hill community where Ms. Vida was a stalwart. And I want to say, heartfelt condolences. And, this house, there seems like there's a lot of loss that we have to mention, but we want to celebrate more the life of those that have passed. And I thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Honorable Premier. Member for Island Harbor, I recognize and acknowledge the member for Single Island Wide Electoral District, Mr. Kyle Hodge.
Madam Speaker, I also want to extend my sympathy and my condolences to my brother, the Honorable Merrick Richardson, on the passing of his mom. Whenever you would go to LNJ, she would always have something encouraging to say. She would always be asking you how you doing, how's your day. So she was a lovely lady, a very pleasant woman. And I know she would have been one of Merrick's biggest cheerleaders, during the recent campaign and election. And to now have to deal with her loss, it must be difficult and tough. So I want to just say to the Honorable Minister, Merrick Richardson, that he has a team, of people that he can always lean on in these difficult moments. So from my family to his, just want to express my sympathy and condolences to you, brother. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Single Island Wide Electoral District Member, Mrs. Quincy Gums Marie.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to speak publicly to my brother, Merrick Richardson. I knew Vida for some time, but I never knew that Vida was Merrick's mom. I would have only made that connection a bit later on in the campaign, and I realized, I said, Vida, who are you here for? She said, Merrick is my son. And I said, Merrick, all this time I didn't know that Vida was your mom. And one time we were out on the campaign trail, and I said, Vida, you afraid you'd catch a draft in this rain? She said, I had the bodyguard. And she was there for every event, no matter how great, no matter how small. And I know she was very proud of every time Merrick spoke. You could see it in her eyes. Sometimes when he got that fire, and we were like, but this isn't the Merrick who we know. We would go over and speak to Vida, and she was always the proudest person in the room whenever he would get off the stage. And it's just a good opportunity to get to know you over this period, and also by extension your family. And, I've been sniffling in this corner from the very beginning, but I just want to extend my heartfelt sympathies to you, and you know that you have a family that you can always rely on.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Any other contributions? I know you suggested member for West End. It was your suggestion. So before I ask Merrick to respond, I'm going to ask you to give your contribution.
Well, thank you again, Madam Speaker. It is always difficult losing a loved one. In fact, they don't even have to be family, a born family, to have that special bond. But as the member for District 2 mentioned, there's something special about a mother. Because, again, for me personally, Madam Speaker, my mom lives in England. She left when I was only 1 year old, simply because that was a sacrifice she had to make in order to give me the opportunity to be here today. And I thank her so much for that. I also fear that something might happen to her while the COVID is going on. I haven't seen her for a while. So it is very difficult when you talk to someone about the loss of a mother. And again, I keep on saying we need to appreciate what we've had and not look at a loss. And I think Merrick, again, is very fortunate to have had someone in his life, and he'll always have her in his life because she'll always be there. I knew her, and I knew her well. I knew her as someone who was very loving. And again, as the member for District 4 mentioned, whenever you go to L&J's, there was always something positive to say. Always something positive that came from her. So again, on behalf of my family, and again, West End and North Hill are pretty much one family, and my community, I offer condolences and wish you all the best as you go through these challenging times. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you also, Honorable Member for West End. Now I ask the Honorable Member for North Hill to respond.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Don't worry, I'm going to get through this. It's easy now. First, let me thank everyone in the House for your kind words. Secondly, let me thank everyone who has messaged, text, called. I have still on quite a few hundred messages to answer. I will get to them. Everyone who has experienced a loss knows that it's not easy. I mean, Monday and Tuesday last week were two of the hardest days in my life. Correct that. They were the hardest 2 days of my life. But by Wednesday, I was good. I was truly good, because the number of calls I received, the number of messages I received saying how mom touched her one way or the other, made me realize, because on the 22nd of October, she would have made her 10. And I felt a little bit that she didn't get to see that promised number of 10. But being an avid sportsman, I know it's not always the top score. That's the important score. I think she filled every line on the stat sheet. As a basketballer, I think she had the points, the rebounds, the steals, the blocks, the assists to fill the score sheet. So I know her time here was well served. I've received calls from persons who said, you know, her proudest moment was that I was elected, and I would keep telling them no. Her proudest moment, well, each time she received a new grandchild. So there's 8 proud moments in her life. And anybody who sat down and talked long enough with her, she would give you an earful about her grandchildren, her proudest. This is a trying time for me and my family, and the love I've felt from the entire island, I mean from east end, west end, north to south, that has gotten us through this time. I mean, other than the first day when there were tears, it's nothing but smiles since. And to the whole of Anguilla, I appreciate your love, and I feel your love. Just last week, when I rise to spoke about Reverend Wycherley, I said I remember we always talk about the need for families to be close and the need for families to go forward as one. And I appreciate my entire family in Anguilla, not just my immediate family, but my entire family in Anguilla in this time. That has gotten me through this moment. So thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Anguilla.
Thank you also, and thank you, members. Now, it has been moved and seconded that this Honorable House stands adjourned until October 27th. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. This Honorable House now stands adjourned until October 27th at 10 a.m. Thank you, members.